Good morning. Wow, welcome back. I hope you're having a good day so far. I've cooled my throat down after that cooking show. I know who went to the cooking show, of course, by who's coughing right now. But I've been assured it will start to subside after about 24 hours. All symptoms will have returned to normal. Well, today we are going to be talking about Australia's Northern Territory, and specifically, of course, we're going to be talking about Darwin and everything that we have to look forward to in our next port of call. Unusually, I'm going to start this with a video made by the Tourist Board, because they have made an absolutely fantastic video for cruise ships visiting Darwin, and they've given us permission to share it with you now. Enjoy. I think you're going to find it very useful.
Welcome to Darwin, the capital of Australia's Northern Territory. We're excited to have you visit and want to help you make the most of your stay. We respectfully acknowledge and honour the traditional lands of the Larrakia people and recognise the continuation of culture, connection to lands, water and country. We pay our respects to elders past, present and future. The Darwin cruise ship terminal is located on the edge of the city centre and within walking distance of many attractions. Make sure you bring a hat and some water. The days here are generally warm and can be quite humid. Look out for our brightly dressed tourism ambassadors who are happy to help you find your way. If you've already booked a shore excursion, the coaches will leave from outside the front of the terminal to the left. Look for your shore excursion crew and listen for your group to be called. If you are planning your own day, you have two options to get to the city centre. You can follow the shaded sea walk to the Darwin Waterfront precinct and take the glass elevator and sky bridge. This should take about 15 minutes. Or you can catch the shuttle bus from the cruise terminal, which will take you directly to the Visitor Information Centre, which is a 5-minute ride. Both options are wheelchair accessible. The Visitor Information Centre can help you with booking last-minute tours, update you about any special events, and answer any questions you may have about how to spend your time in tropical Darwin. Various short tours, including the hop-on, hop-off bus, depart from the Visitor Information Centre throughout the day. Free Wi-Fi is available throughout the Waterfront precinct and within the city centre. There are two supermarkets in the city centre. Coles can be found in the Mitchell Centre or Woolworths on Smith Street. Smith Street Mall is a shaded strip of shops, pharmacies, ATMs and money exchanges opposite the Visitor Information Centre, and it's the main shopping area with a selection of boutique shopping available. Make sure you pick up a signature Northern Territory souvenir, such as a crocodile skin item or an exquisite South Sea pearl from Paspaley Pearls, or unique artwork from Paul Arnold Gallery. There is a small arcade off the Smith Street Mall called the Star Village, which has a range of boutique shopping options. Across from the Visitor Information Centre is Aboriginal Bush Traders. The retail gallery exhibits a range of authentic Indigenous products and is complemented by a cafe which focuses on using native Australian products and ingredients. A must-see attraction in Darwin is our saltwater crocodiles. Here in the city, we have Crocosaurus Cove, located on Mitchell Street, which is a 10-minute walk from the Visitor Information Centre. Crocosaurus Cove offers close encounters with crocodiles of various sizes. There are a number of presentations and talks throughout the day, plus you have the chance to hold a baby crocodile or snake. About a 20-minute drive from the city centre, we have Crocodilus Park, where you can see a range of both crocodiles and more exotic animals and reptiles. Many visitors to Darwin aren't aware that on the morning of the 19th of February 1942, Darwin came under attack from the Japanese and was bombed relentlessly. This story is told through various tours and attractions around Darwin. If you're interested in Darwin's military heritage, we have plenty of options for you, such as the Darwin Military Museum and Defence of Darwin Experience, the Australian Aviation Heritage Centre, or the Bombing of Darwin Harbour Experience on Stokes Hill Wharf. All these attractions tell various stories about events on that fateful day and how the people of Darwin rallied to fight against the advances of the Japanese forces. Check with the tour desk for military history shore excursion options. The Museum and Art Gallery of the NT is located on the shores of Fanny Bay. Here, you can learn about the territory's natural and modern history. From traditional Southeast Asian maritime vessels, diverse natural science displays, through to the Cyclone Tracy exhibition, the museum also showcases the territory's most important Indigenous art. If you feel like a mini adventure, Darwin has some great options. Explore the George Brown Botanic Gardens, which are located 2 kilometres north of Darwin City. Litchfield National Park is about 1.5 hours drive from Darwin, where you can see towering termite mounds, cascading waterfalls, and swim in tranquil waterholes. The Territory Wildlife Park is about an hour's drive from Darwin, where you can immerse yourself in the various habitats of the top end and see a range of local wildlife and reptiles. Another option is a jumping crocodile cruise, where you can see crocodiles leaping from the water. To explore further afield, ask your shore excursion experts who can help plan your tour. Back in town, the Waterfront precinct hosts a number of cafes and restaurants to enjoy al fresco dining and a famous Darwin sunset. There's a lot to see and do here in Darwin, and we know you'll have a wonderful time. But don't worry, if you can't fit it all in on this trip, we would love to see you back to stay for longer and experience more. For more information, please see your shore excursion experts. Thank you for visiting, and we hope you have a wonderful day in Darwin.
Thank you for coming to our Port Talk today, and have a wonderful day. How good was that? If only every port made a video like that. That was so cram full of fantastic information. I will attempt to follow up from there. Wanted to show you the state flag, because we, well, I say state flag, it's not a state. We've left the state of Queensland and we have arrived at the territory, which a lot of Australians just call it the Territory, Northern Territory. And this flag came about in 1978 when the Northern Territory was given the right to self-government. One of the funny things about the Northern Territory is that for most of its existence, in terms of what we would call modern-day Australia, the Northern Territory was actually ruled by South Australia, which is an unusual one, but the state of South Australia, where Adelaide is, and we'll obviously be getting there, used to just control that whole chunk. So in the same way that Western Australia is that whole top-to-bottom chunk on the west, there used to be a chunk in the middle, which was South Australia, even though it reached right up to the very most northern points. The flag itself has 3 colours in it, which are the official Northern Territory colours: black, white and red ochre. And it is a version of the floral emblem of the territory, which is the Sturt's Desert Rose. So that's what you can see there. But it's specifically got 7 petals. There are 7 petals to represent Australia's 6 states and 1 territory. And so the 5 white stars on the other side are the Southern Cross, which is possibly familiar from the main Australia flag. Alrighty, let's show you the map again, if I can get this to click through. There we go. So again, just to situate ourselves, we are now in the bit which is NT, in the top middle, NT, Northern Territory. And I must say, I've found it pretty motivational visiting Darwin. I love visiting Darwin because, having graduated from the University of Cambridge in the UK, a young Charles Darwin hopped on a ship, sailed around the world. 183 years later, a boy called Daniel did exactly the same thing. And I looked into that a little bit more because I thought that can't be coincidence. And I found that after Charles Darwin's time below deck, he became the world's most renowned evolutionary biologist. He was honoured with a college named after him at his alma mater in Cambridge. He was buried in Westminster Abbey, which was the site of King Charles' coronation. So I reckon Cambridge and boats are probably the end of where our lives overlap, but it's a nice thought. But anyway, Darwin didn't always carry his name. So I'm not talking about Aboriginal names for this area. I'm talking about modern names for the city that we're going to be visiting. So how did Darwin end up giving his name to an Australian city on the other side of the world? Well, when European settlers first arrived here, they arrived on board a ship called the HMS Beagle. And this was a ship that, it was a survey ship, but it was funded by having supernumerary crew who paid their own way. In fact, a lot of cargo ships do this today. If you've ever wanted a really uncomfortable cruise, then you can get a room on board a cargo ship. It's quite an interesting experience. There's a fun sort of atmosphere on board, and you end up getting a lot of time in port when you finally arrive. But long times between ports. So if you really enjoy sea days and no swimming pool or anything else, then it's an interesting one to say that you've done. But anyway, on board this ship, the Beagle, was a man called Charles Darwin. He was interested in collecting up species and sending them back to London. And in honour of their former shipmate, who they all rather quite liked, the captain of the ship, Captain John Clements Wickham, and the lieutenant on the ship, John Lort Stokes, named the port that they pulled into in this area of Australia. They named the port Port Darwin. So Darwin had a port named after him, not a city. It would actually be another 20 years. It would be 20 years before the port of Darwin was upgraded to become the city of Darwin. At the time, they called it Palmerston. Palmerston named after the British Prime Minister at the time. That was quite common at the time. People used to go out around the world, find somewhere, decide to name it after somebody important back in the UK, probably in the hope of some favour back at home. Anyway, it didn't last very long, and probably because British Prime Ministers don't last very long. We've held on to the current one for almost a year. We're very proud of ourselves. Anyway, at the time, Palmerston was the town, Darwin was the port, Beagle was the boat, and everybody was very happy. In fact, everybody got very, very happy when they discovered gold. They discovered gold in the region, and suddenly everybody was coming here. Everybody wanted a piece of the gold. In fact, they discovered gold in quite a lot of places around Australia, and there was gold rushes to various pockets of land. Everybody wanted a bit, and you start to see a very multicultural community build up around the region. You have people from Europe, Japan, Timor, the Philippines. Everybody wanted a piece of the pie. And that was the 1870s, so 1870s. But here's where it got interesting, because the people in Palmerston at the time, they were making bank. They were having a great time. They were getting extremely wealthy. But the government of South Australia, which managed the whole area, found itself in financial difficulties. And they found themselves with a bit of a choice to make. They could either go bankrupt, or they could lose the Northern Territory. And they opted for losing the Northern Territory, and the Northern Territory became its own self-governed territory. And that was all because if they'd stayed, they would have gone bankrupt and the whole thing would have been lost to the Commonwealth of Australia. They decided it was better just to lose essentially half of their land to the Commonwealth of Australia at the time. So that was the decision made. And to this day, there are only two cities in the Northern Territory. One is Darwin, the other is Palmerston. But Palmerston just moved down the road. So Palmerston wasn't completely shunted. He just had to go a little bit further away. And you can get to Palmerston from Darwin quite easily. The combined population of the two is 200,000 people. It's very sparsely populated, the Northern Territory. And a large amount of the Northern Territory now, increasingly large amounts actually, is committed Aboriginal land. Now, when I say that, it's been Aboriginal land for yonks, but due to land rights over various periods of time, it was taken away, and then due to law cases, we spoke about the Mabo versus Queensland case. Well, that was foremost in changing who was able to own land and rights to native land. And so there are significant areas in the Northern Territory where you can't enter without a permit, because that's the way that the Aboriginal elders run that pocket of land. Despite the surrounding beauty of Darwin, and there are some lovely parks that you might want to go exploring, it's not been a particularly peaceful place. You heard mention in the video just before about the World War. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the presentation. But it's not just military attacks here, it's the weather. The weather has been brutal to Darwin. In particular, there was a cyclone on Christmas Day of 1974 that really it massively destroyed the city. And so when we get there, you'll see a lot of stuff looks fairly modern, and that's because it is. Things had to be rebuilt. So much of the city was razed to the ground. Let's have a look at the port itself. So here is a photograph of the port with a different ship, but we're going to be in the exact same position. And you see, you walk from the ship, and then you go into that building. And the building is where we're going to do immigration. The building's much smaller than Brisbane. And so in Brisbane, there were lots of seats where you could sit down after going through immigration. Not the same here. And so we'll talk more about that in this evening's Q&A. But the very, very quick version of it is you can either go through immigration and then head out into town and enjoy your day, or you can head out through immigration, then come back on board and relax on the ship. But once you've decided to come back on board the ship, you can't go back out again until immigration has concluded. So that's the decision to make, whether or not you want to go straight out and enjoy the day, or come back on board, relax on board for a bit, but then we have to wait until everybody's been seen by immigration before people can then re-exit the ship. And we'll talk about that a bit more later on today. As you can see from the symbols at the side, there is a plentiful supply of toilet roll in the port area, should you require it. We also have, for our first couple of hours of stay in the port, there will be local advisors, tourist information personnel, who will be able to give out some maps. They've got some really good maps here, and to answer any questions as well. And there are taxis in the area as well if you would like them. And we'll go through more of the logistics in this evening's Q&A. Here is another map just to show you from the top what it looks like. The ship is where the little boat is in the circle. And then there is a walkway. It's a covered walkway. You saw it in the video. And that goes across to the Waterfront precinct. That's your shortcut to get into the start of town. That's going to take around 15 minutes. And it's 1.5 kilometers to then the CBD area. What you do, you walk under this covered walkway, and then at the other end, you're already in the Waterfront precinct where there are shops and stuff, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. But then there's an elevator. The elevator then takes you up to the main level where the CBD is. Has anybody been to Valletta? Do you remember the elevator there that takes you up to the town? It's pretty similar to that, except it's not in Valletta. Let's get into our top 10. So this is Crocodilus Park. Crocodilus Park, just out of town. Now, something that's very important to be aware of is Darwin shares its region with some rather ferocious, sharp-toothed snappers. These neo-dinosaurs that would love to eat you. And I know that you survived the dragons. So you might be feeling pretty confident right now. But you've still got many obstacles ahead. There are saltwater crocodiles, there are freshwater crocodiles, all of them extremely hungry and big. 7 meters in length they can get up to, 1,000 kilograms at their heaviest. So they really don't need to eat anymore, but they just keep going. And they're all over the northern tropics. The Adelaide River is swarming with them. And actually, right now, they're in the middle of breeding season. So, yes. Female crocs lay somewhere in the region of 50 eggs and they lay them in these hidden nests near the water. And then in a few months' time, pop, out come even more of the gnashers. Now here's something amazing. Talking of breeding crocodiles, not that I recommend breeding crocodiles, unless you're a professional, but I found this fascinating. The gender of a crocodile is determined by the temperature of the egg during its 90-day gestation period. Isn't that amazing? So if the temperatures rise for that egg, if the temperatures inside the egg rise to about 32 degrees Celsius, then the crocodile will be male. If it does not reach 32 degrees Celsius, the crocodile will be female, which is conclusive proof that at least in the crocodile world, men are hotter than women. At least before they're born, anyway. If you want to discover more, then Crocodilus Park is a great place to go. They've got over 1,000 crocodiles there. They are about 20 minutes drive from the port. You can take a public bus, but the public bus adds a lot of time to the journey. It ends up being about an hour to get there by bus. And when you get there, arrange to spend some time there, because they do tours through the day to show you around the land that they've got. They do feeding shows so that you can watch the animals being fed. There's not just crocodiles there. There are some other animals as well. And so it's worth taking a good amount of time to really get into it and enjoy. They also do jumping crocodile river cruises. I know some of you went on one already, but if you've heard people say how good that was and you would like to do one yourself, then they do them here. If you want to see a crocodile but you don't want to go quite so far, then Crocosaurus Cove is right in the center of the CBD. It's terrifying, but that's okay. I believe in you, having seen you survive the dragons. Here's the thing with Crocosaurus Cove. If you're willing to do it, you can go and look at the crocodiles. Yeah, that's fine, but that's pretty tame. So you could go swimming with the crocodiles instead in what they have gently called the cage of death. Yeah. So if you would like to go into the cage of death, it will cost you 185 Australian dollars for the pleasure of swimming with the snappers. But you get some amazing photos. And I think actually, not that I've ever done this, you know what I'm like, but I think they offer a photo package where they'll take photos of you being eaten so that you don't have to worry about... There's so much to think about at the same time. If you'd rather eat than be eaten, then the Waterfront precinct is just such a great place to be in Darwin, and it is the closest thing to the ship. I wouldn't be surprised if for a decent number of people, this is your day. You walk off the ship, it's going to be hot. You take your time walking along that covered walkway, and then you arrive in the Waterfront precinct, which is inside the rectangle, and you just kick back and relax. There are 21 places to eat there. There are 2 places to go swimming. Neither of those has regular crocodiles or jellyfish. They have human crocodiles, but that's it. The recreation lagoon is free to go into. The wave pool, the wave lagoon, is $8 if you wanted to go swimming with some waves. And the aqua park, because I can see some of you just really want to get on a bouncing water slide. If you would like to do that, then that's going to cost you $28 an hour. And we're in port for many hours. So you can go up and down that water slide as many times as you like. It is also wheelchair accessible. So you can... Not the water park. But it's great riding down. It's just difficult to get back up. The precinct itself is wheelchair accessible. The World War really hit Australia here, and there are a few really interesting sites that you might want to check out if military history is your thing. Now, the World War II oil storage tunnels are very, very close to the ship. You can see they're just by the water precinct, walkable from the ship. Now, these were hollowed out in World War II. Over 400 men were working on it, and all of them were over 50. It was hard work, and the intention of it was that it was going to be used for fuel. It was a fuel storage depot. It never ended up being used. They did all of that work for nothing. But the main tunnel that you can visit is 170 meters long. And they did all with little pickaxes. But the thing that surprises people is Japan dropped more bombs on Darwin than Pearl Harbor. There was an important reason for that. This was a really important city for Australia in terms strategically and in terms of communication. It's not a massive city. It doesn't have that many people that live there. But it had Australia's single point of contact with the outside world. It was a submarine cable that came in from Singapore, also at the time a British colony. And so it was tapped between British colony to British colony at the time to make sure that Australia was connected, that people could talk to Australia, let people know what was going on, and in the case of the war, make sure that support could be requested from Allied forces. The Axis knew that if they could disrupt that communication, then Australia would be out of the war. And as such, so would New Zealand, because that was the onward point of contact to New Zealand. So it was a strategic bombing campaign to try and stop any form of contact to Australia and New Zealand. There is a relatively small but interesting exhibition or gallery inside the tunnels. And so you walk along the tunnels and you've got the frames on the wall that have information to follow that story through. And it's $9.50 in Australian dollars to visit. And the opening times, because we're in this top section of October to April, is only in the morning, really, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So if this is something that you'd like to do, make it a morning activity. If that doesn't satiate your thirst for military history here, then the Military Museum, Darwin Military Museum, is another great place to visit. It was formerly a wartime command post, and now it's well set up as a museum with anti-aircraft guns. It's got galleries of stories and memorabilia that really bring the past to life in terms of the wartime story here, and actually a little bit beyond World War II into the more modern era. It's a little bit further away. You do need to drive 15 minutes by car if you grab a taxi. And it's Upper East Point, which you can see where the box is at the top, the square. Great views from there as well, of course. And actually, some of the area in Darwin region is still used by the military. And so you'll see areas which we can't go into. One of them, just whilst we've got this map up, is this section here is a military zone. So you won't be able to go in there. But well worth going up to the Darwin Aviation Museum. And actually, on the way, you can go to Fanny Bay Jail, which we'll come to in a little bit. If that isn't enough for you, then this is fantastic. The Darwin Aviation Museum, 20 Australian dollars to get in, open all day for us. And it opened in 1988, so actually it's relatively recent as a museum. And they've got an exhibition on at the moment. They change their exhibitions up, but the one at the moment looks really good. It's called the Great Air Race. You might have heard of it. It was a race in the 1930s. It was a race for who could fly fastest from England to Australia. And a few private aviators joined in the race. And in the end, the winning team, they were flying for 135 hours over 28 days. And can you imagine? Nowadays, it's a 24-hour flight to get between the two. But it took them 28 days in a plane. Oh. Anyway, that was the winning team. And there's a whole exhibition all about the competition and about their plane and stuff. And beyond that, they've got their permanent display as well. So you'll see there are 19 aircraft in their permanent display. There are 21 engines without the aircraft. They fell out. And there are 38 other major displays bringing together other relics from the 1930s and beyond. If that isn't enough for you, this is where my dad would go straight to. This you won't find in any guidebook. This is the sort of thing that you've got to have you've found it, you've stumbled upon it, and you just thought it was fantastic. I've never seen this written down anywhere. Going back to that story about the race, this is the aircraft hangar that they built in a bit of a rush for the race, because they realized that they were all going to fly into Darwin, and there was nowhere to put the planes once they'd arrived. So they built this aircraft hangar. It ended up being used by Qantas. You can see at the time they were called Qantas Empire Airways Limited. Then it became just Qantas. By the way, you know Qantas is one of the airlines of Australia, yeah? Do you know why it's called Qantas? It's a bit of a weird name. Yeah, Queensland and Northern Territory Air Services, or yeah, that's what it stands for. I just thought it was a made-up word. I assumed it was just a word, but it's not. It stands for something. Anyway, the prize, you might be wondering, what did this team win when they flew all the way here? They won £10,000, and that British pounds. And at that time, that was a huge amount of money, and it pretty much paid for their fuel bill. Inside here, so inside this old aircraft hangar, it's now been taken over by a group of enthusiasts. They are the what do they call it? Something I can't remember what the M stands for, but the V is Vehicles and EC is Enthusiasts Club. It might be the Memorabilia and Vehicles Enthusiasts Club, but I can't remember what the M is. Anyway, it's just a group of people. They've got shared interests, and they love to buy tractors, trains, cars, all of these things, ancient ones, back in time, and they do them up and then they display them. So this is their clubhouse, but you can visit. It's free to visit, and they open 9:30 to 3:30 Monday to Friday, and then 9 till 2 on Saturdays. You go in. They do accept donations if you wanted to support what they do, but they don't charge you to go in. And there are always club members around that you can chat to about their stuff. And remember, that this stuff on display is their stuff. It's their personal collections that they just club together and put them so that they can all enjoy what they've collected. But they've got some amazing things here. If you like trains, they have got the Northern Territory's oldest train, the very first ever train to operate in the Northern Territory, which actually was built in Philadelphia. Yeah. It was built in Philadelphia in 1885, and then it was shipped over, and then it was put on tracks here in Australia. And they've got it, and they've restored it, and it looks great. And so you'll find loads of good treasures here. This is the top place that my dad would go. He would run straight there and spend the whole time there and bore them silly. They would not be enthusiasts by the end of that conversation. Anyway, he's not here, so it's safe. As you can see, it's just a 6-kilometre journey, so you just take a taxi, a 10-minute drive. I mentioned Fanny Bay Jail just before. Now, Australia is known for its jails. They've got many of them. Many are now tourist attractions, and Fanny Bay is one such. Now, Fanny Bay Jail, by the way, the bay is called Fanny Bay, and so the jail is just named after the bay. It's not named after a person. It opened in 1883, so that was in the reign of Queen Victoria. It closed in 1979, so that was Queen Elizabeth. It went through a few reigns in between that, so it saw almost 100 years of locking people up. And the original blocks, A block and B block, which makes sense, they're still there. They contain 6 cells, a kitchen and a wash house, and you can tour them. They then added later on an infirmary. That was in 1887. You can go to the infirmary. You can go on board as well if you needed to. Don't go to the infirmary for any medical reasons. Just go to tour. But you can also see the gallows. The gallows of the final executions in the Northern Territory. This was two Czechoslovakian immigrants who had murdered a local taxi driver, and so they were executed at the gallows in this jail block, and you can see it there. There was a female block added in the 1920s because that's when girls started getting naughty, and there was a native Aboriginal section added in the 1950s. Which tells you something about the politics of that era as well. The fact that, generally speaking, prison populations are split by gender. You have the male block, the female block. Sometimes you have a male prison, female prison. But to have male, female, Aboriginal gives you an idea of the politics of the era, that even the prison population shouldn't mix with the Aboriginals. And that was very much of its time at that period. Anyway, it's all still there. It's free to visit. It's open from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And an interesting one to go to. It's also wheelchair accessible, which is great. If you were to go to the military museum, it's halfway there. So you could go here and then continue on to the military museum and turn that into a sort of a half-day tour for yourself, a DIY tour. All right, let's talk a bit about nature as we get towards the end of our top 10. We're on number 9 at the moment, and this is the national park. Now, there are actually 2 national parks in the area that are accessible within the time that we've got available. The one that I recommend prioritizing is the closer one, because then you'll be able to relax more, and that is the Charles Darwin National Park, named after Charles Darwin. It's just 4 kilometers away from the town itself, so you're really close. You take a car there, 15 minutes there, and you get some nice trails to enjoy wandering around. But the interesting thing about this national park is it's not just about nature. If you're interested in war history here, then there's a lot to see in the park that relates back to that era. There are concrete bunkers that were built into the park at that time. It's got lookouts that then look over the port and the city of Darwin, and they were all built in that World War II era for military protection purposes. But they're all still there. You can see one of the sort of huts built into the side of the hill, just there. A bigger national park, and in many ways a more impressive national park, is the Litchfield National Park. Now, the thing with the Litchfield National Park, as wonderful as it is significantly further away. It's a 90-minute drive. And so, given the time that we have in port, it might not be the day to go to the Litchfield National Park unless it is top of your list that you really want to go. You get off early once we've arrived, you go straight out there and you enjoy your day there, and you obviously make sure you're back in time for our All Aboard. But the thing out there is Mother Nature. Most people, as well as sort of these huge monumental gorges that just take amazing photos, monsoon forests, you've got swimming holes without crocodiles, so you can bring your swimmers and go and swim out there in the park. But the real thing that people get their photos with are the termite mounds. So you've got these magnetic termite mounds, and termites are these tiny creatures, but they build these monumental columns, and there are loads of these columns. An impressive natural landmark to go and see, a real feat of nature. Cathedral termite mounds. So if you head out there, make sure you do get a picture with them. But if you just want to be out in nature, then the local Charles Darwin National Park is probably your better option. Or, final one on my top list of 10, the George Brown Darwin Botanic Gardens. Now, the Botanic Gardens are 4 kilometers from the ship, which would be an 8-minute drive just up towards Fanny Bay. So again, if you wanted to try and package things together for your own self-made tour, you go to the park, then you go to jail, once you get out of jail, you go onto the military museum and then you drive back. The gardens here are they're run by an organisation, a volunteer organisation called the Friends of the Botanic Gardens, and they've got a little gift shop as well where you can support them by buying their stuff. I got a book from them last year which tells the gardens stories, but also tells you about the various plants in them and the landscaping of the gardens. Because in these gardens they've got various zones with different themes. There's an African section of the garden, for example, and you learn about the plants and the structuring of that section. It's a good little booklet. It was actually a former rubbish dump. So it's really transformed into something quite beautiful. And there's public art throughout the gardens as well to keep an eye out for. I thought I'd put this image of the dragon, given that we're coming up to the Chinese New Year. Is it tomorrow? I think the Lunar New Year is tomorrow. So there you go. You can see the dragon on Lunar New Year. I asked if we were going to invite any dragons on board for it. I was told that that wasn't safe. The other thing to keep an eye out for in the Botanic Gardens is a church. Now, the church wasn't originally in the gardens. It was originally in the centre of town, and it got relocated. It's a wooden church. It's a Wesleyan church, and it is the oldest church in the Northern Territory. And so if you're interested in that, you can visit the gardens and see the church there as well. Alrighty, I will conclude with a map. And so here are my top 10 positioned on a map for you. And this will be going on your television screens in your room as well. So give us a couple of hours to get it there, and you'll be able to see this on your TV screens too. You will also, very excitingly, get a printed map tonight on the back of your port tip sheet that goes to your rooms each evening before a port. There will now be a map on the back. Thank you. I had nothing to do with it. But we hope that will be helpful. And as I mentioned before, the locals who greet us at the port, they have fantastic maps tomorrow. They're really good. They're big. They're clear to read. And so I do recommend picking one of those up as you go through the port as well. Well, thank you very much indeed for coming. I will see you at our Q&A this evening. If you've got any questions, have a great day.